Hello, this is Cotton Stoops and welcome back to another Lumion Legacy HTUC video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Grimyuline. Grimyuline is our newest Lumion Legacy roamer of the Christmas 2024 event, and of course, it is inspired by a Yule Cat, and that fact is reflected in its move kit. So without further ado, let's talk about what Grimyuline can really do in your matches. I'm talking about the counters and checks and teammates in order to really know how you can team build around Grimyuline, as well as talking about its roles and sets in order to know how to use Grimyuline in your battles. Today's video is all about how to use and counter Grimyuline. So in order to know how Grimyuline can play, we must look at its base stats, its abilities, and its typing. First off, Grimyuline's offensive power doesn't really look to be that great. 107 melee attack is usually what you'd find on a sweeper like Avatros or a cleaner like Zulong. They do have abilities that help us remedy that damage as well as coverage, but strictly alone, 107 base melee attack is enough to be somewhat offensive pressuring, but it's nothing on the stronger wall breaker sides like the many strong wall breakers in this game, like Vesperatu, Baniki, and all of that. The speed tier of 98 as well is also pretty decent. It will help you outspeed a lot of wall breakers in this game. For example, you can outspeed non-boots C.B.O, Joltooth, Valkyrie, Shachi, all of that. However, you will get undersped by common sweepers and cleaners, stuff like Garbantus, Zulong, Nemesis. You'll all have to watch out for that, as well as some other boots users like Ikazune and Lantorch. Besides this, it has a pretty good bulk across the board. 101 HP, 110 melee defense, and 97 range defense. All of this are pretty good. While it doesn't typically excel in something like a wall would, like Obsidian, it does have pretty good bulk across the board, and it can take multiple hits, assuming they are resistant. Now, going on to its abilities does help its offense and defensive respectively. First off, sharp edges, it's your Obsidian stuff, losing 12.5% of the max HP if your opponents hit you with a contact move. So you can constantly chip them even when you're just coming into battle. For those who are not running secret abilities, this would be fine if you're trying to utilize this defensively. However, your normal or your secret ability actually is Sharp Claws, which will allow you to do 30% more damage when it is in for all contact moves. That is most melee attacking moves. Like some examples would be Cycle Slap. I'm pretty sure it's not contact. Earthquake. So if we would ever get those moves in the future, those won't be boosted by Sharp Claws. However, while it does have a decent normal ability for defensive prowess and decent defensive stats, it's not really great in terms of its defensive typing. You have 4 weaknesses to fire, air, light, and toxic. If you're thinking of light types, think Lumines like Lantorch, Ikazune with Flash and Flee, all of those light types that will be faster than you. Typically, Luminamis would also threaten you. You just have to break the Shade Pearl first and then you can start breaking it. Other weaknesses could include the fire type, which Ikazune, Boots, Arceros, they will be threatening you. Toxic types, not a lot typically, but you still have to watch out for the likes of Rancidor. And air types, there's only really one in this meta, and that is Morphezu. And as for the sweeper one and cleaner one, Stratosaur also being one of the other air types. In terms of resistances, Ice and Dark, this coverage combination isn't shared by a lot of Lumines in this game. It's only really Crown Boss. But Dark types can allow you to swap in on the likes of Vesperatu if you could, maybe Cephalops. Ice types, maybe Himber, that's really it. And a Colossus, I guess, as well. Other than this, overall, there's not a lot to like about Grimyuline, at least based on what you can really see. It has a really low energy tier, which I did not talk about, but I'll talk about now. It runs out of energy very easily. Just to give you some reference, it needs 100 TPs in its energy to get up to 250, which kind of goes to show how low energy Grimyuline can have, and that of course means you have less stats to go around. Its defensive typing also barely has any resistances. It's never a good sign if you do not have a lot of resistances and you are weak to much more stuff, which means it's hard to swap in generally, even if it's on a neutral hit. Unless you're a defensive Lumion, or defensive sets, Grimyuline will be having a hard time of swapping in. Besides this, its positive summary is pretty good in my opinion. There's only some stuff to like about it, and that its damage is pretty good. It's able to hit 7 types super effectively with its coverage only, or I mean coverage based on its stab, and no spoilers, but it's the only coverage it has. And as for its bulk, it has decent bulk, but it can take resistance hits pretty well, just not neutral hits. Alright, finally, to the more important section of this video, and that is its set. Usually, I would give 2 sets of this caliber because Grimyuline does have that ability to run a defensive or an offensive one, but right now, in my opinion, defensive is right now horrible. It does have some decent moves like Barbs, Poison Barbs, Provoke, Gain Drain. Like, those are decent support moves, don't get me wrong, but Grimyuline, its defensive typing's not great, and it also doesn't have hard recovery. Usually you'd want to be having more bulk if you don't have recovery, stuff like your Golem Defense. It doesn't even have Slumber, so I wouldn't use it defensively. But offensively, it is pretty good. Its stab coverage will allow you to hit a lot of stuff super effectively. You're just walled by spirit types, but your personality here will be nimble. This will make sure you can outspeed as much as possible, and your speed tier is pretty competitive, so you want to make sure you can outspeed as much from there as possible. Besides this, you have a lot of moves to choose from. You're pretty flexible in terms of what you want Grimyuline to be. You can have Grimyuline be a really hard hitter with Rogue Assault, Gnarly Gash, with Bulk Up, or you can choose to have Grimyuline as more of a Lumion that can utilize its bulk to swap in on resisted hits, although not a lot, or neutral hits, and you can make this live longer but still do damage. Battle Jab, Slapdown, they're pretty good. Quick Punch, Preemptive Strike, Barbs, and Provoke are the third move option. In my opinion, Quick Punch could be the best one because there are some ice types you could try and pick off. Mainly, it's really only Gianta actually. But in my opinion, the best thing to really use as your third move option is Provoke. Preemptive Strike or Barbs is good, but most of your swap-ins will be Esperatu and Your Snack and Lava Feet because they're spirit types. Provoke can prevent Lava Fiend from taking off hazards, and Your Snack will prevent it from using Baffle or Gain Drain if you want. This is particularly good in the ranked metagame because Grimyuline will be facing a lot of Your Snacks running Baffle, so running Provoke for that is pretty good. While you cannot cripple Your Snack besides taking off its item, making sure it cannot baffle is very good. Bulk Up is your only other move option I'd really consider as your fourth move. It's the only setup move you have, so you might as well run it. As for items, Dark Essence is good. Health Amulet could be good because you want to make sure you can maybe sweep in terms of defensive stuff or against defensive teams, but there's really no other option. Dark Essence to boost your Slapdown or Gnarly Gash. Brawler Essence is also a decent item to run. And then as for its TPs, kind of alluded to the fact, but you will need to run 100 energy. You can also drop the energy down to make sure you have 240, so then you can have enough for 6 Rogue Assaults. I prefer to have 100 energy because now you can use a Gnarly Gash or a Slapdown, and then you can just use whatever move combination you want. 200 melee attack and speed is just to max out your more important stats. There's really no point in going into anything else because there's really not a lot of TPs you could really want to waste into any other stat. So let's talk about its counters and checks. Now, as alluded to, spirit types are going to be the best option in terms of defeating Grimyuline. Lava Fiend, Vesperatu, and Your Snack are probably the 3 common spirit types in ranked right now. If you want to look in more other competitive tournaments that do have ban lists like 999, maybe meta-analysis when that thing comes out, you will have to watch out for stuff like Ovalast. Your Soul is also another one, I just didn't put it on here, and Harvest Act is also a niche spirit type you'd probably find. Another stuff are Revenine, but make sure you have at least something to hit spirit types super effectively, whether it'll be offensive light types like Night Torch, or spirit types that can take hits like Obsidragon, and maybe Zulong and Arceros, but I'll get to that actually. And as alluded to, I did get carried away, but spirit types will be weak to ancient types always, always. Zulang is probably the most consistent spirit or consistent ancient type. It has the most or one of the most speeds in the game. It typically is running stuff like not gloves, goggles, so it will hit very hard. It also allows pivot in for Grimyuline, and it does synergize it with it pretty well. When you think of Zulang answers, you'd think of stuff like Sober's Gastruk, Pyralin, Cleone, Iliguana, and you can pivot in with an Ancient Roar or a Zip Zap, and then Grimylin will be coming in and will be able to hit all of those either neutrally or super effectively. And it will also have reduced damage, or the Lumion that Zulang is pivoting from will have chip from Ancient Roar or Zip Zap respectively. Other than this, Dorogo is also another good one. If you're looking for a straight hard swap in to stuff like Your Snack or Vesperatu, Dorogo is also a good one at that. Although I do understand that the fact they are both dark types and that's not really good for team composition, so I understand if you do not want to run Dorogo. Besides this, you could run Novadius and Arceros. Novadius with Obsidian Heart basically makes it an ancient type, but that's besides the point. Novadius is very strong into spirit types. It has Outburst or Jacoby more Primal Slash or whatever for Vesperatu, Obalast. It's a very good swap into Lava Fiend. Also, Arceros is very good. You can run a Boost Arceros and then you can have a pretty solid melee attacking duo. This is very solid, although I will have to warn you guys, you have to run like a plant type or something for light types because none of these Lumines want to swap in on the Manami or whatever. So make sure you have a plant type to cover the light weakness. So that's pretty much it. So overall, I think Grimyuline, I'm gonna be honest, Grimyuline can probably be one of the worst roamers we've ever gotten out of an event ever. I think that honestly, all of the roamers kind of have been at least at the very worst decent, and that would probably be in reference to Wobblisk or Mamask. But Grimyuline here is probably the worst roamer we've ever gotten. I don't think there's something worse. Being weak to, or not being weak to, but being walled by spirits in this metagame is very, very bad. You have very strong brawler types like Banake to really warrant some competition towards. Because of that, there will be a lot of spirit types, and there is a lot of spirit types right now. Being walled to one of the best spirit types ever, probably in this metagame, that being Vesperatu, is horrible. Although, to be fair, you could slap down these specialty gloves, so Grimyuline at that does seem pretty decent at that. Other than that, Lava Fiend completely walls you. You cannot do anything to it besides provoke and then swap. Your Snack gets free momentum off you, and then that means you're enabling a Borok or a Nikazune, which isn't great for either of your cases. And then overall, it's just not great to be having your only coverage being Dark and Brawler. To be fair, if teams are not running Spirit type switch, you would only really find in lower ladders of ranked, then Gremlin can do a lot, but in other situations, it's hard to really enable Grimyuline when you're facing more competitive teams. Stuff like Ace, tournaments, Grimyuline won't be seeing a lot of use cases there. But who knows, maybe Grimyuline can find some sort of niche that I'm not seeing right now, and it can make some pretty good teams out of your guys' opinions. So let me know what you guys thought of Grimyuline down in the comments section. Make sure you leave down your thoughts and of course what you want to see next. This is Kind of Stoop signing off to remind you guys that Zulang is still a dumpster fire.